when did this become okay in Pittsburgh? The Pittsburgh that I grew up watching and played against would have never said this or allowed this. You got one of my favorite movies all time is Miracle, and Herb Brooks, the coach, has that saying, the name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. This is the opposite of that. This is George Pickens in many ways going, this is me over we. That's never been the Steelers' way. Woody and I played on bad teams. We dealt with a lot of this stuff where it was me, not we. Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger and Hines Ward and Keith Miller, those guys were never a part of something like this. And I sit here and I ask, when did this become okay in Pittsburgh, who for decades has been the standard? George Pickens should, because of his effort, be benched. They can't bench him because they're not talented enough to overcome what that talent gap or drop-off would be. But for me, for a person who has in many ways admired the Pittsburgh Steelers organization and what it stood for, I sit here and I ask, when did this become something that a Steelers team that is in the playoff hunt has to answer questions and kind of explain effort? That's shocking to me. Shocking.
It's not shocking. It's not shocking to me. You say, when did this happen? It's been happening. Let me tell you, one of my favorite quotes, Woody, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this. You never accept anything in a win you wouldn't in a loss. If you think Pickens has not done this when they were winning, you're fooling yourself. So you mean to tell me you think this is the first time that he's ever done something like this? No. Do you think Deontay Johnson not blocking that DB against Cincinnati was the first time he done this? Absolutely not, because you either coach this or you condone this. And so I'm saying, Mike Tomlin, you condone this, because when Antonio Brown was missing meetings, when he was showing up late, you played him because he could give you production that you couldn't get. You remember when he went Facebook Live in the locker room immediately after? And what did Mike T say? We're not going to punish ourselves. You see, he was tolerating things in wins he never would in a loss. Now, if that was okay in a win, why isn't it okay in a loss? Because you condoning is like a child. A child does not know the difference between right and wrong unless you correct them. And he never corrected them. And so now they think that he says, I didn't want to get hurt. You in the wrong sport, bro. You need to leave football. Woody, D.O., you better tell him. If you play the game of football, it's not in. It's just a matter of time. You're going to get rolled up because you're going to ask the running back to stick his face in there and block a blitzing linebacker or a DB so the quarterback can have extra time to throw you the ball. It's been like this. Look at the wide receivers over the last decade in Pittsburgh and look at their behavior. Look at Antonio Brown. Look at Chase Claypool. Look at Deontay Johnson. Look at Pickens. Look at Martavius Bryant. Do you see a recurring theme here, Dan? And it's one group. It's one group, Woody. It's the receivers.
Yeah, listen, when we played this, we had a big discussion about this on Get Up this morning, and just hearing George Pickens, like, I almost erupted on the set because it's just like, what are you talking about? He was basically disparaging reporters and telling them, like, y'all don't know what it's like being out on the football field. And I'm like, well, I played 12 years in the league, and if you, and Shay and Dio, you know this, it's when you don't play at 100% is when you get hurt.
Absolutely.
That's what happens. You know what I mean? Like, so his whole concept of, well, I didn't want to get hurt, that's why I kind of stepped out of the way. No, it's when you don't play at 100%, that's when you get hurt. But Shay, here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say right here. Mike Tomlin, who's one of the best orator head coaches that in all the sports that I've ever come across, he has a saying that he says all the time. The standard is the standard. Okay? The standard is the standard. And what I take from that is there's a way that we go about doing things here in Pittsburgh. I don't care what other teams do, but when you put on that black and yellow, the standard is the standard. And so, Shay, this goes back to what you just mentioned. Okay, if the standard is standard, why have you kept allowing all of these guys at one position to keep doing these things over and over and over again? Because, see, it's easy for us to pump our chest up when we get numbers and when we win it. But to me, the true character guys are the guys when you're in a 3-game losing streak, you're not getting your numbers. The guys who stand out in front, those are the guys that you want to hang your hat on. And so for me, when I look at Mike Tomlin, I'm just like, okay, so you're siding with talent over the standard right here. And
right.
what message does that send to the rest of the Steelers locker room when guys are busting their behinds trying to win football games, and there's clearly a guy who's not giving you max effort, but, we need this guy. We need his talent out on the field. What is that saying right now?
You understand that the game of football is inherently dangerous, and the moment that you step on the field, you're susceptible to an injury or risk of an injury? Come on, Pickens.
Could you imagine, Shannon, could you imagine just live in a world where, we're in a playoff game or the Super Bowl and Tyreek Hill's running that big in route versus the Buffalo Bills a couple years ago, and there's a defender and Patrick just drops to the ground. And everyone's like, well, Patrick Mahomes, why didn't you throw the ball to Tyreek? And he was like, I didn't want to get hurt.
Right.
Could you imagine another player just saying, hey, I didn't do kind of what my job is, what I'm paid to do in part because I didn't want to get injured?
No,
and that's what I said. Like, that's the ultimate me over we. And that's why I don't understand how, like, we've gotten to the point where we're trying to, like, have a conversation about effort.
Shay, let me ask you this, man. Like, can you imagine, like, when you usually have plays like the ones that Georgre Pickens had, you've been in those meetings where, like, team meetings where a coach will put it on in front of everybody.
Everybody.
Can you imagine how disgusted you would be sitting in a team meeting and the coach showing you that play as a player? Like, you got to have some pride. That's the thing that just really puzzles me about this. Is like, where's your pride at?
Right.
Where's the pride at? Like you said, Shannon,
right.
This stuff has been going on for a while because for you to just go out there and do something like that, you fear no repercussion.
And
you fear no repercussion.
He said, you know what? Sometimes we think things, Woody, but we like, man, if I were to say that, how that's going to sound?
Right.
He said it out loud.
Right.
And when you played in the game, the one thing, especially in the blocking game, I wanted to make sure, I said, man, I know if I'm doing some bull jive, Alan's going to put this thing up on come Wednesday. Mike going to say, hey, I said, man, you don't want your team. That's the one thing. You can let 80,000 fans down, but you can't let your teammates down. The guys that's counting on you, that you said, I will give it up for you, and you expect them to give it up for you. You would give it up for them, and they would give it up for you. And this man said, I didn't block him because I didn't want to get hurt. How?
Shannon, how about this? Brooke Pryor this morning was having in part of the conversation with us, and she reports in Mike Tomlin's words, she asked, why won't you bench George Pickens? And to her report, Mike Tomlin said, because he's too talented.
See? Woody.
So what? The standard is the standard, right?
That to me is shocking.
No, it's not to me.
Maybe I'm like naive to it, and maybe I'm a little bit too old school, but to hear the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers say that, to me, is shocking.
That's why they behave in this manner. A child will continuously to misbehave unless there's a correction. And my grandfather used to always say, but he said, boy, you never reward negative behavior. You see what they did? They set the standard when they gave AB that money. AB been acting a fool, and they gave him the money.
B. Like that was, at least that was, but that was AB who was a Hall of Fame player.
Dio, Woody, you better tell him, you see what happens? When those guys see that type of behavior, they think once they get to that level, they can behave in that manner. So if I start having a little success, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to act a fool also because AB got rewarded. You never reward negative behavior, therefore you don't run the risk because it's no longer the standard is the standard. That is the standard. BSing. That is the standard for the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core. That is why they're going through what they're going through. Ain't no more standard is the standard because Mike Tomlin has told you, he has shown you what the standard is. If you can play, it doesn't matter what you do on the field. You can bull jive, you can drop passes, you can go half-hearted. I'm going to put you in the game because I believe your talent demands that I do so. So therefore, it says, why? So what's the incentive to make them to do what they should be doing if they're going to play regardless?